Hello, viewers. We're going to mix up the topics today. I like to mix up my hobbies to keep from getting bored. Yesterday, I went and played airsoft for the very first time. That was influenced by the fact that I have a bunch of 1/6 scale firearms, and I thought about, why don't I play airsoft? Because I used to play paintball. Paintball and pocket bike racing have been the funnest things I've ever done in my life. Speedball in particular for paintball, close quarters, so there's immediate action. And then pocket bike racing is just insane because your head is only like a foot from the ground. So you're not really going fast, but the sensation of speed is well beyond any sort of four-wheeled vehicle I've ever been in. Anyways, I went and rented some equipment. It wasn't very good. So today I went and bought that rifle that's in that box, but that's a different review to come. In order for me to test that rifle, though, I'm going to shoot into a shooting box to test its accuracy. But I just so happen to have a shooting box already because when COVID first started, I was looking for something to do indoors. And that something to do indoors was slingshots. Most people shoot slingshots outdoors, of course. But I live in an apartment. I'm on the 20-plus story building, so there's nowhere for me to shoot outside. I live in a very urban city. So, anyways, I went and bought a bunch of this stuff. I did slingshotting for a good 6 months straight because it's actually quite challenging since there are no sights. You know, anyone can shoot a gun with a front and rear sight. You just line up the sights, you shoot, and you might hit. Slingshots don't have sights, really. There's only one sight, the corner of the slingshot. Different thing, we'll get into that later. So I'm going to show you the stuff that I don't use anymore. This is all. And then the stuff that I do use for indoor shooting. We'll talk about this later, I guess. Alright, so this box of stuff that I don't use. So this is a bag of hard plastic ball ammo. For indoors is not good because when you miss and this stuff ricochets, this will break glasses, break mirrors, it will break things. You definitely don't want to shoot metal balls indoors. That'll ricochet and, not good. Alright, so outdoors, I'm sure this is perfectly fine. But in my apartment, no. Another thing that was a waste of money is this little hand/finger wrist guard. It's, I think, originally meant for archery. You put your fingers in here, and then it keeps the rubber band from slapping your hand, and which, isn't so bad once. But if you slap your hand a bunch of times, it gets annoying. But for some reason, I changed my grip, and I never need to protect my hand from using this. So for me, this is a waste of money. Here's some targets. So these are some fake leather targets. This target's so big, it's a waste. Even as a beginner, there's no reason to hit something that large. These are metal ones, but since I play indoors in an apartment, these make a lot of noise. So I don't like using either of these. They actually make a lot of noise, even the leather ones. So very durable, though. So these ones, by the way, you just run a piece of string through this section here, and it hangs. You can do the same here on the metal one, a piece of string, or put this on a metal rod even, and it'll spin around. Like, this is really for rifles and stuff, BB guns. Okay, what else do we have in here? Alright, so, well, I'll talk about the slingshots that don't work for me later. Let's get into some gear here. So, rubber bands first. So there's two kinds of rubber bands. There are flat rubber bands, and they come in different thicknesses and different widths. Naturally, the more rubber you have in a rubber band, the more power it has. So some rubber bands are just the band itself, but it's pretty cheap to buy rubber bands with the fake leather pouch on already tied off. So that's why I have these. But be mindful that oxygen destroys rubber. So the longer these sit out, even in this bag, the shorter the life. Eventually these things will snap. So I went and bought a bunch of these waterproof cases, and they're full of rubber bands. So because this case actually has a rubber gasket, once I close this thing, these rubber bands are, not exposed to as much oxygen. Alright, so those are the flat bands. They're pretty cheap, that's why I have so many of them. In 6 months, I probably had like 5 rubber bands break. They last a few hundred shots. There are forums on slingshotting, and there's a couple YouTube channels talking about it as well. Eventually, I progressed to try these regular tube style, like surgical tubing, and they both I like both of them. I'll get to that with the things I actually use. All right, so these will go back into these cases to be airtight. I don't know what's in this one. All right, more rubber bands. Yeah, different pouches. Some come with just solid pouches. This little hole is to index the actual BB or the projectile you're going to use. Different thicknesses of tubing. Thicker is stronger and faster, but more tiring as well. Yeah, here's a few other types of rubber bands, right? Okay. So you'll see here's a destroyed rubber band. Eventually this rubber band just got stretched too many times. Oh, and there it goes. And now it's been exposed to oxygen, so yeah, that's what happens. This is why you always want to use eye protection. It's not really the fear of maybe an object ricocheting and hitting you in the eye, although that is possible. It's the fear of this rubber band snapping and then it slaps your face or slaps your eye. This will definitely hurt if that could blind you maybe if it hits your eye because it's moving very fast. And then I tried later on to tie my own rubber bands and stuff like that. But yeah, this one is garbage now. Just too old. Okay. So in fact, when you're getting to get into the hobby about tying rubber bands, this is a rubber band tying jig. You actually take a pouch and you can clamp the pouch down and tie off a rubber band to it. I'm not going to go into that detail right now. I'm just talking about what works for me. So anyways, I did find this useful. You can adjust the width and all that stuff to adjust the width of the band. It'd be something like that, and you'd use it to tie things off. So this is useful if you get into that part of the hobby. But again, you can just buy rubber bands with the pouches already tied on, like this as well. This is my own effort, I think. So some people will do a single loop or a single band. Some will double it up for more strength or more power. This band here is a bunch of lightning holes. The reason why is you want a lighter pouch and lighter bands is the lighter it is, the faster it moves. But at the same time, there's less inertia, so that affects the projectile, the inertia. All right. These are used to tie off rubber bands. This is actually a rubbery string. I'm not sure what type of material it is, but it actually stretches. And that's what's used to actually tie off the rubber bands to the pouches. This is one way of doing it, using this type of crystal string, it's called. And they come in different thicknesses. This is a 5mm thickness. It says 7mm, I think. Or maybe that's 7 meters. My bad, yeah. This is a 0.8mm diameter. Sorry, I have to put the focus there. The other one is a 1mm diameter, but it's 5 meters long. All right. Okay, so yeah, I bought a bunch of different pouches. They come in different shapes and lightning holes. Honestly, I didn't find really much difference to most of them. I just try to use the lighter, smaller ones because I found, well, I have 2 different setups. Never mind, we'll get to that later. This is just a plastic clip to hold tent tarps down. I did find it useful though if I want to clamp down a pouch, and I had a fixture. I made my own fixture to make my own tie-off thing for the bands, but it didn't work as well as I thought. So this is why it's in the garbage box, because this one is designed specifically to work. All right. Other things that I didn't find too helpful after all are some surgical forceps. These are also used to hold the ends of pouches and rubber bands and stuff like that. But I don't know, don't really use them. This is also, it came in, I think, the kit to, I think it was a kit. This helps to tie the bands to the pouches again. you'll see here, this is just a giant pouch. I mean, this is literally meant to lob rocks or something. So for indoors, it's just not necessary. If you wanted to go outside, yeah, and try to take out something big, sure, I guess that would be useful. You'd have to have some strong rubber bands moving something this heavy. All right, what is this? I tried some O-rings, and those are sometimes, some people use them to keep the rubber bands on the slingshot. Some O-rings. I didn't find it very useful though. They stretch too much and the band falls off. So O-rings didn't work for me. Alright, let's get these things out of here. Another way to tie off the bands to the pouches is using waxed cotton string. And these are pre-made. I pre-made these myself. So this I would slide over a band in a pouch, and then you'll see here you can tighten. Well, I messed that one up. If I tie these two ends, tighten these two ends, the loop will close. So there we go. So that's how it would close around a rubber band in a pouch. Yeah, anyways. So YouTube's on how to do that. Okay, just some clippers, which I'll use for other purposes, to cut off, the tubing and stuff. I think this is a pre-made one that came with the slingshot. This is a very powerful one. Too powerful for indoors. I don't need my stuff to go Mach 20 because it'll ricochet and break stuff. This is a flat tie-off band. The other one was like a fishing line, round, but this one is flat. In theory, it has more traction. I haven't used it though. Okay. I'll get to this stuff later. This probably just came with a rubber band, just some metal BBs. Don't shoot metal stuff indoors, it'll ricochet and break your mirrors. I actually have a magnet just sitting here to keep all the BBs together. Alright. These are clay BBs, so you don't want to be shooting clay indoors, because if they do hit something, it's just going to explode as a bunch of clay powder, and then you have to vacuum it up. But for outdoors, these are kind of entertaining, because if they hit a brick wall, they'll just, puff out. So it's kind of neat. And I guess it's more, sustainable, biodegradable, just having clay dust instead of just a steel BB or a plastic BB sitting there for decades or hundreds of years. All right, more pouches. Small ones, mediums, okay. Yeah, these things are all really cheap. I bought almost all this stuff off AliExpress. Yeah, so you can experiment around. If you're gonna start out, I would recommend for indoors, you get a medium or small pouch, because you'll find that the ammo you shoot, it'd probably be smaller than big stuff like this. This is like for outdoors. This one actually has a magnet embedded in it, but again, it's just, I'm not going to shoot metal steel balls inside my place. Random clamp. I think this is used to help tie off stuff, but I haven't used it. Sorry, more pouches, more clamps, more O-rings, more pouches. Pouches till no end. More tying line. Metal target, small targets, but these make a lot of noise again. Alright, so just random garbage in there. What is this thing? Yeah, this must have to do something with tying off a knot to tighten the to tie bands to pouches. Okay, so let's talk about the slingshots that I don't use. All these things were relatively cheap, some were like $3. Some maybe, well, outside of this, maybe $3 to $10 maybe. You'll see this one, it's just a flat piece of plastic, and it uses these things in a BB to keep the rubber band on. But I found that, I think it's this one, yeah, it cracked. So this black one is supposed to be here, but this thing is so cheap that this cheap material that they used, it cracked. Let me get this out of here. So to avoid this one, ignore this stuff here. I might as well talk about it though. This black plastic is called Polymorph Plastic, or it's, I think, well, heat moldable plastic you might want to search. It looks like a bunch of rice pellets, rice grains in this white plastic, and you heat it up with water, and then you can mold it, and then once it cools off, this is extremely tough, nylon type of plastic. Like, it's structural toughness. So it'll withstand, hitting with a hammer and stuff like that. It's like the stuff that I think like garbage barrels are made out of, or even stronger than that maybe. So I tried to make this really uncomfortable one a little bit more ergonomic. So you'll see it actually fits my palm better. But unfortunately, the thing was so cheap, this thing, so it rendered it useless. So that's why it's in here. This is a really cheap metal one, and it just has 2 open loops because you're supposed to just run the elastic band right through this gap here, and then you can pull the BB back. But see, it just rolled downwards. So the band itself doesn't really want to stay in the top position because there's no real index. So functionally, it just doesn't work. It's nice and small, but the last thing you want to do is have this side of the rubber band like this, and then the other side vertical, right? It'll affect the trajectory if these things aren't aligned properly, the bands. Again, I used some polymorph here, and here you can see it literally just grabbed it, put it into my palm, and that's really comfortable to hold now. So I really recommend getting polymorph if you want to customize something. Ignoring slingshots, like this stuff is reusable forever. You just heat it up again. So if you make a mistake, heat it up with some hot water, or even a lighter will work as well, and just mold it again. I had a toaster oven with a really smooth timer dial, and I could never rewind the thing, so I always had to wait for my toaster to time out. I just stuck a bunch of polymorph on there, and I built a handle, and now I can just twist my toaster handle back. So this stuff is fantastic, polymorph. It comes in white by default, but you can mix in different powders to make it any color you want. They sell different powders. This one's green. You saw the black one here. So, okay, well anyways, yeah, this design is horrible because the band doesn't want to stay in one location. So that affects, accuracy. This is kind of stuff, this is an old Barrett. The stuff you see as a kid. These I didn't find very useful for me. I think you hold it like this. This wrist support. The reason being is because the band goes on here. It's a tube style. Sorry, I don't have an open tube. But imagine a big tube and it literally frictions on top of this black thing. But I found that the tubes eventually would slide off, slapping the face. And it's not very, I don't know. For me, I don't like it. It's also very big and bulky. So I feel these are a waste of time. It's not my thing. I'm not sure why about that, but I guess you gotta try things before you know if they're good. Okay, so let me show you this one. This is a steel and nice little wood grips screwed on there. These are your finger grips here, and then this one literally has a sighting system. Actually, you have to hold it this way, so you can look down the sight. The reason why it's long is because you want to line up the front and back sights to what you're shooting at. There's a little fiber optic green in there. And then this clamping mechanism isn't bad. You can take a flat band, of course, and just use these thumb screws to tighten and loosen, and it'll tighten enough that it keeps the flat band in place. For me, though, for some reason, it just kept on slapping my hand, I think. And frankly, I don't think the aiming thing actually helped me out. I think its location was just a little bit too off to actually help. As the band travels past this apex, the slingshot is trying to release the ball right where this vertical metal and the rubber meet. But if your sight is off to the side, you're looking here, but the rubber, the BB or the pellet is always trying to shoot there. That might have been an issue. And now that I'm holding in my hand, it doesn't feel very comfortable. The edges here, although they're chamfered, they're not rounded enough. So they're digging into my two fingers here. So I think that also is an issue. And the reason why they're digging into my fingers is because the narrowness of the handle. You see? Look at that air passing between the palm and the grip. The grip is simply not big enough to fill up the swell of my palm. That's why you saw my ergonomic ones had much bigger grips. So for me, maybe if you have extremely small hands, this would be work for you, but I didn't like it. But again, luckily most of these are pretty cheap. Similar is this one. It still has the band clamps that are screwed. Thumb screws are nice and convenient. It has a sighting system. In this case, you'll see the sighting system is very close to where the band touches the metal, so that's much more accurate because that's where it's trying to release the ball, right in this plane right here, not out here, right? And this one you can adjust the height of it as well because elevation is usually the thing you gotta adjust in your aiming. The left and right is pretty easy to get down. For me, it's the elevation that's a challenge. Okay, you'll notice the palm swell of this is a little bit bigger. So now you'll see, you can't see light, right? This is filling out the palm a lot better. So this feels a lot more comfortable for me. Although still, with the hard metal edge, it's not chamfered enough. You know, the majority of it's flat. If this was more rounded, I think it would be, you know, better. But basically it's flat with two radii on the ends, like 5-10 millimeter radii, but this is all flat here, 20-30 millimeters or so. So it definitely feels better. I suppose if I had no choice, I would probably use this. Yeah, so it's not bad. So if you want to look this up on AliExpress, something that looks like that, it's worth a try. It's really nice and convenient though, these thumb screw attachments. Okay. Very similar to that one, but it just was a straight piece of metal, right? So very uncomfortable, or it may have had paracord on it, I forget. So I took a massive amount of the Polymorph Plastic, and now you can see this is literally meant for my hand only. It's not really pretty to look at, but it did work. But for some, yeah, it's okay, but not as good as the ones I use frequently. This one had an interesting concept though, where it has these little grooves here. I'm not sure if you can see. Sorry, the thing's shiny, so there's some red and green rods in there. Those are fiber optic rods. And the intention is, when you're looking at this thing, they're height aimers. Yeah, they help lock in the height. So I'd put like one dot on something like that. But I think the problem with this design is that these dots need to actually be up here because, you know, the BB or the pellet drops relatively quick because it doesn't have much velocity coming out of a slingshot, or at least my indoor rubber band setups. And then naturally it's very ugly to look at. Comfortable, very ugly. Okay, so there's a brand in America. Boy, it says P. I'm gonna have to look up what this thing is. But I bought 3 of them. I'm gonna have to come back. Hold on a second. Alright, I'm back here. And it turns out these 3 are made by a company, Pocket Predator. PocketPredator.com. Not much marketing effort from these guys, but they make truly amazing, ergonomically sound slingshots. So this first one I don't use though. This is called the Scorpion, and you'll notice here these grooves are meant to keep the band down. So in this case, the bands are supposed to be this way, vertically, if you hold this thing vertically, right? But I hold my slingshot like this, gangster style. So I'm trying to shoot the pellet horizontally through here. Traditionally, a lot of people shoot this way, but it's not as accurate. So I don't like this style. When I'm shooting holding this gangster style and I have a rubber band up here, I can't see anything like where the pellet. I have no idea about the elevation change because the band is so wide. I can't tell what angle height wise I'm holding the pouch. So that's why I don't like this thing. I think if you're one of those people that hold a slingshot like this vertically, then you'll see. Hold on. Well, the band's always going to be on the outside. You'll see, where you're holding the pouch so you can aim it left and right and even up and down. But for me, it doesn't work. But the key thing for me with comfort is the ability to fill in your palm. And this one will do that. You'll see again, there's no air passing between here. It's filling my palm out fully. It's comfortable to hold, but the way the band's attached to this don't work for me. Not for gangster style shooting. Okay, so that leaves these two, and these are the two I recommend. These are the two I will forever use. All the other ones just aren't good enough. So some of these other ones are worth a try because they're inexpensive and they do work. But for me, comfort is king. All right, so this is naturally a lot bigger. This is called a Hathcock. I think it's named after a military gentleman that tried to promote slingshots for military use. All right, so I shoot gangster style, right? So I hold it this way when I'm shooting. So that means I always want my bands to be going across here. Although you could mount them the other way, but for gangster shooting, you want to hold it like this. So as you're looking down, you can see the band's edge. And that's like your aiming system. Left, right, or up and down. That's why I choose to hold my stuff this way. All right, so it's very comfortable to hold. Oddly, the palm swell on this is not really there. You'll see, it just has nothing to do with your palm at all. It's a totally different way of thinking, but it works. Since this doesn't have to touch my palm, all the traction is around this part of my hand. So there's just no way it'll twist, which affects height accuracy, or twist this way, which affects left-right accuracy. It's very solid. Once I lock my hand out, I lock my elbow out, it's very nice. I wear an extra large motorcycle glove, by the way, so I don't know, kind of large hands. This is a tether. You really want to tether the slingshot because if for some reason one of these bands breaks, this thing might want to fly off in the other direction. It might want to fly out of your hand. Or somehow maybe it might want to twist around and then the handle will come around and hit you in the head. So that's why you always want to tether your band. It also helps lock your wrist if you have the proper length. So the more I twist this, the tighter it'll get. Yeah, that's very tight. You can see it digging in. Alright, so that's just some paracord, nylon paracord. I think I may have actually... No, this one has 2 holes in it. Yeah, by default. Or did I drill this? It's possible I could have drilled this one myself. This is standard, but it doesn't make sense to have the nylon cord here if my hand is covering that hole up. So it's possible I might have drilled it this way so it doesn't affect this side of the hand, right? Okay, another key thing is an option that they sell is these speed clamps. So these bands are running through this kind of like a slide buckle and how it overlaps on itself right there. So there's no way these bands will slip loose because they're being clamped down against the actual handle, and then all that rubber on rubber friction keeps it from slipping loose. With traditional, stuff, you tie off your band like this, they might want to slip loose. And then this is also a quick thumb screw. So if you get a Hathcock, I highly recommend you get the 2 additional options here because it's so much more user friendly as far as replacing things. I took the extra and I just have some rubber bands holding the extra down. I guess you could cut it off, but I didn't know what length I want to use. There's different videos on the length that you should be pulling. It depends on your arm length itself and where you rest the pouch against your face. I'm not going to go into that today. Alright, so awesome. And for this one, I have a pretty big pouch on this. So I shoot larger ammo with this one. Okay, so, but also you'll notice there's a lot of rubber here. This is pretty fast. So it's a lot of power going on these bands. So this is meant to move heavy objects. But it still works indoors fine. But the one I really use probably the most is this Pocket Predator. And this is called the Taurus. And the Taurus comes in different configurations where the bands can be vertical or in this case horizontal. But holding it gangster style, the bands are vertical instead of horizontal, like that very first one. But you'll see in this case I am running tubes. Just one single tube on each side because I'm shooting only 7 meters. I don't need the power of this. This is like really fast. This is much slower, but it doesn't bother me. If you start, pulling stuff several hundred times, it does get tiring. But this, you really can't get tired pulling something with only this much tension. But something like this, you do that a few thousand times, 100 times, it starts to get tiring. But maybe if you're looking for exercise, I don't know. Okay, so now this one, I have a different type of way of locking it to my hand. I use this little ring, and it's just paracorded on there. So I slip my pinky finger through this, and then I hold the rest of it like this. So again, this one is designed to fill up the swell of my hand. You can see how much is coming off the back end. Here's the center line, and this much is extra. So this fits my extra large hand perfectly. This is I guess my favorite one. It's a tough call. That one's awesome too, but it's just so much bigger. It's very bulky, carrying it around. If you want to go outdoors, I guess for power, you could go for this, but if you just want to walk around and shoot some random things every now and then, plink a rock or hit a sign or something, I don't recommend that. That's vandalism. Don't do that. Alright, so this is much easier to put in your pocket. So I think that's probably why these are called Pocket Predators. Very, very small. So with such small rubber bands, I have a pretty small pouch on this guy. Very light pull. This one is tied off. I tied it off myself. Unfortunately, there's no quick clamp mechanism. So I tied it with some of that, rubbery fishing line kind of stuff I showed very early. And then for better insurance, I zip tied over that. So these have never fallen off. They've never fallen. So another idea is to actually put like a toothpick or something inside the end. So there's no way if this thing can get through that knot because it's so much thicker than the knot itself. It is theoretically possible if you don't tie this thing tightly enough, this will just slip through the knot, right? But if you thicken the end, impossible. Alright. Okay, so that's it for the things here. Let me show you my setup. Alright, you'll have to excuse the mess because I'm a slob. But anyways, this is around 7 meters, 20 feet or so. And that's just a shooting box I got off AliExpress, like 15 bucks or something like that. Let me show it to you, and then we'll come back. I'll show you the ammo I shoot, and then the posture I use, and we'll do some sample shots. Alright, it's kind of dark over here, but hopefully the camera will compensate. So, this thing you can buy online. It has a steel frame. Let me get a flashlight. Alright, that's a little better. So it's got a steel frame, and then this cottony camo material has some ties inside of it. But you'll see here, even these slingshot balls, they have a lot of momentum, at least the ones I'm shooting, and it's broken the stitching here. So I might have to get a new one. I now see they have one that's made of black mesh, and you want that. I'll tell you, if you want to be quiet, that's a key thing. So things to keep quiet. First, this is a silicone rubber target. These come in different sizes as well, but I find that I like to shoot this small one. It's more challenging. Paracord rope doesn't really break very easily. I used a bunch of metal chains before. Those metal chains would break. The slingshot balls have enough momentum, they'll break through a chain. And I'm talking like a thick chain, like a 5-10 millimeter steel chain. So paracord seems to be the best long-term thing for me. Okay, now noise. This thing just comes with a little barrier, I think. But if you hit it with these balls, they make a lot of noise. So you'll see here, I took a bunch of old t-shirts and I have strips of them. So the ball literally has to go through several layers of t-shirts, and that's what keeps this thing relatively quiet. There's actually some just hanging up in there. And then even for more protection, back here, I have a, let me get the camera in here again. It's really hard to do when you got a tripod in front of your face, but okay, so there's a piece of sound insulating foam, and you'll literally see there's a yellow ball embedded in that foam from all the momentum. So that actually went through all those shirts and is embedded in that foam. Okay. So the more you have of these t-shirts, the better sound dampening there is. You could theoretically buy a really thick mesh and have a few layers of that, and that might work as well. Okay, so you might ask there's a wire in here. Because my apartment isn't set up for shooting, I don't think most are, I bought a bunch of LEDs. This is a 3 AA batteries, and it's Christmas tree lights. So it actually helps quite a bit seeing that target, because this hallway here doesn't have a light at the end. So it's cheap enough, you know. But honestly, I don't actually use it too much because this is such a high glow, high vis orange. I don't need it. But if you're in a really dark area with a darker target, this is a pretty cheap way to make this stuff work better. It also has a flash mode, although I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. Okay. So let's see what else there is to talk about. I just have some paracord holding the 4, points up top, and then they're going to some aluminum hooks. And this is a shower curtain rod, or actually it is a curtain rod. Behind it is a shower curtain rod. Even with this giant opening, this is I think a 40 by 40, or maybe it's 60 by 60. Hold on a second. Yeah, it's a 40 by 40 centimeter or 16 inch for that horrible measurement system. Even though that's pretty big, I would sometimes miss this entire box. I very often hit this frame here, and that's what led to that damage. So behind it I have a mosquito net. And I find this mosquito net is perfect for muffling the sound. When I miss, the thing actually has enough momentum that net will go back like, 20 centimeters or a foot. And that's what's absorbing the sound. If this was a solid cloth, it would make a lot of noise. I used to shoot into this curtain here, makes a lot of noise. I bought all types of different fabrics, but I find the best fabrics to absorb noise are mesh. So, stealth shooting, mesh. That's why these t-shirts are cut. If they were solid t-shirts, they would make noise. But if they're strips, that's closer to a mesh, it dissipates noise. Okay, so that's my setup there. It's very easy to, just take up and take down because it's got hooks and shower curtains that I can undo from the wall. Let's get back to the ammo. Alright, so ammunition. That's, after the slingshot itself, that's probably the most important thing for indoor shooting. Because again, if you're shooting hard ammo, it's going to ricochet and break things. So I found that you can use rubbery type of ammos. So there's several different sizes in here because I'm using different size bands, different weights are involved. Very first thing you want to do with any sort of firearm is safety glasses, and in particular slingshots, because some of this ammo will come back and hit you in the face. It's happened to me. And that face slap from breaking rubber bands, that's happened to me several times as well. So you don't want to have that stuff hitting your eyes. So use some proper, safety glasses. Okay, so I only shoot rubbery balls here. So the first small ones here, I got all these off AliExpress. They come in different sizes. Oh, here's a side note. This is a steel chain. I broke this chain shooting these rubber balls into it. So to give you an idea, I mean, this is a strong chain, yet I broke it. So I don't use chains anymore for the targets. Alright, so this is a glow-in-the-dark ball. It's got a hole. This is either meant for fishing lures or making jewelry, like kids' jewelry necklaces out of them. You run a string through this to make a necklace. But it's silicone. You can literally hopefully see me squishing that. So it's still hard enough to hold its shape through the air. Naturally, having a hole in this is going to affect the aerodynamics, but at 7 meters it's not noticeable. I can't tell. Make sure it's on millimeters. So this is a 12 millimeter ball here. And if you're curious about the weight, some people are interested in stuff like that. .94 grams. They are kind of cool, you know, if you charge them with a flashlight, you shoot it, it's like a tracer bullet. So those work okay. This one here is just a regular, this is actually a small paintball. It's a rubber paintball. That's how I found them. 10.5 millimeters. 0.82 grams. So this one, being a paintball, there is no hole in the middle of it. You know, it's not meant for necklaces. So this is aerodynamically superior. Although again, I don't notice a difference, so I shoot all of these. And so these come in different sizes. There's a medium-sized ball here. This is even a larger necklace ball. This, again, silicone again. This one's like 15 millimeters. Or 2 grams or something. So the smaller ones I shoot with the small, just a single tube band, small little pocket, and it works perfectly fine. I'll show you a video of that soon. The larger ones though, these are large paintballs. This is, I believe, a 68 caliber paintball meant, you know, for regular paintball guns. But that in the real world, this is 16.7 millimeters. That whole inch measurement system really annoys me. And this thing weighs over 3 grams, 3.16. So I would never try to shoot this with something this weak. It's just not happening. But these larger ones, that's when I would use this Hathcock one with the flat bands, and it works perfectly fine. And frankly, because the ball is bigger, it's easier to hit the target. So I don't actually use these large ones all too often, but I can. Alright, so another thing you'll notice, this is just a camouflage like ammo dump bag, I think. It's meant to, or just a random pouch. Maybe it's for rock climbing to hold chalk, but it has some sort of structure around the rim to keep it open. Although there is a cinch closure, you can close this with the pull string. But I use this to hold the large ones, and I wear it. So this one, I just have a nylon strap, and then I have this is like a camera strap, I think. Yeah, it's a camera strap, and then for some reason I have this little fuzzy, like seatbelt type of cover thing on it. Oh, it's because I don't wear a shirt indoors a lot. I live in the tropics. It's freaking hot here, so that's why I do this. Anyways, I would literally wear this on my shoulder, and so when I need more ammo, I just grab in here easily, put in the slingshot. Right, so this is very convenient if you want to just, you know, stand outside somewhere and not have like a table full of stuff like this. Because I do shoot indoors, I keep my little ones here and it's on a table and I just pull from this. But sometimes I'll shoot the big ones just to change it up. Okay, so I cannot recommend the silicone or rubber paintballs enough for indoor shooting. I have never broken anything with these. Sometimes they'll bounce back, but it's rubber. It's not going to hurt you. Yeah, they're fantastic. Let's get into the shooting posture. Alright, we had to go to a vertical format because I want to make sure you see my feet. So, your feet want to be parallel to your target, at least if you're going to shoot gangster style. First, things do not do, for me, the traditional way, your wrist doesn't make sense to be here because your eyes are here. So, if I look, you can see the center of my face, the center of the slingshot. You can see my arm is going at an angle, and then my wrist is kinked outwards. It's not very comfortable to do this, I think. It doesn't make ergonomic sense. But if I face you directly, my feet are in line with your camera there. Now you'll see my arm is relatively straight. My wrist is straight. It's not going this way or that way. And then I'm pulling this to my cheek. And the band itself is the aiming device. So from a side view, I'm facing parallel to my target. I'm pulling out my arm straight, locking my wrist as well. So you always want to pull your ammo in the pouch to the same part of your face. And tweaking that is what adjusts the aim, really. So in my case, I like to take the thumb bend here and put it right here in my face. Some people will put it here, there, whatever. But for me, my hand wants to go right here. And so what I do is I'm looking down the band. That one actually ricocheted though. So that's for this, little guy here. Pretty much the same though with the big one. My lanyard on. So from the side view again, I'm pulling this to the same part. There's a lot more force in this band though. Or if I'm facing you, my hand and my arm are still in the same position. Right? So that's what seems to work for me. There's many other YouTubes on how to have the proper stance. I watched all those YouTube videos and they seem to be pretty much correct because it works. That has a lot of momentum, this one. Anyways, let's get to a behind my head shot view. Alright, first we're going to shoot this little Pocket Predator Taurus, I think it was called. So when you're putting the ammo in the pouch, you want to hold it the same way. You don't want to hold it this part of the finger, that part of the finger. You want to be consistent in the way you hold the ball or your ammo, because the only thing you really want to tweak is you're moving your hand around. But if you're always changing where you grip this on your hand, like up here, over here, or down here, then you have to relearn everything all over again. So for me, I like to grip it right here near the knuckle. People suggest it wants to be near the bone because it's harder. If it's in this middle area where it's soft, that might affect, create more variables. So ideally, I'm trying to push it against the hard part of my knuckle here. All right? So that's how I'm holding it in my hand right there. And so when you line it up, I'm trying to make the top of the band right here, this orange band, line up with the orange target way out there. I don't know if I can do this. I literally have a camera in front of me, so I don't know if you can even see that target. No, I can't shoot through a camera. Alright, so I'm going to stand next to it. And in fact, I'm also going to shoot that netting because I want you to hear the sound of it when it hits the netting. So I'm going to shoot the netting first. I guess I'll try to shoot above it. So it's like a thud noise. If that was cloth, before I had cloth, that curtain, in fact, let me hit that curtain. The denser the fabric is, the louder it seems to be. Did you hear the noise difference? I'm going to go back and hit the screen, the mosquito net. All right, so that makes a big difference to your neighbors. On the other side of that door, there's another door right to the right, so I'm pretty sure they can hear me shooting and stuff. I also have foam on that door, thinking that would help out, but it doesn't. Okay, so now that you've seen the noise cancellation effectiveness of a piece of mesh over fabric, hopefully that gets through to you guys. I'm probably going to have to edit this because chances of me hitting that target are really slim. I mean, that's a small target from 7 meters, but let's see. So you'll see the cotton. You can hear the difference of the cotton t-shirts back there. It's much louder than the mesh. Also, you don't want to have your bands crossed like this. It will affect the accuracy. So you have to take the effort and make sure your bands are open like this. Yeah, those t-shirts are definitely louder than the mesh, so I might possibly buy a bunch of mesh fabric and have a bunch of layers of mesh behind this target. So hopefully you heard the sound of me hitting that actual camouflage cloth. That is much louder than the t-shirts back there. I'm shooting low. Again, I'm probably going to have to edit this. The very best I was able to do is 4 bullseyes in a row. So for me, it's the elevation, because these bands are pretty thin, they're not very powerful. So I might literally have to get the rubber band above the target, like literally block the sight of the target in order for it to land properly. Nope, but that was too high. Let's switch over to the big boy, the big Hathcock with the very powerful flat bands. So again, I get my wrist thing on there. And then I gotta switch over to the giant sized balls. So size difference, we're going from the small bands with the small yellow ball to the paintball size blue ball. And then again, I want to grip it pretty much the same way, right in, for me, that knuckle area. I don't want to have my bands crossed. I want to have air between them. Yeah, I also want to grip it so these tie-offs are at the same distance. That way when it lets go of the ball, one side isn't pulling it. Right, so this is going to be loud, I think. Wow. So that was loud because it hit the actual fabric below. So that hit the t-shirt, much more quiet. Let me hit that big mosquito net behind it. See, again, it was like a muffled sound. Now I'm gonna hit that curtain. Very often the bands will start to overlap themselves, and I think that affects accuracy as well. So this is why I switched to loops on the little guy. You always want to try to keep these flat bands flat. So I think that loops might be better. You don't have that issue so much. Let me hit this curtain. So hopefully you heard the difference there. The mosquito net is definitely the quietest. Then I would say the t-shirts in the target box, then that curtain, and then the loudest is the actual box itself. I don't know if I hit the target or I hit the rope. Ooh, yeah, I think that hit the back again. So these giant balls with these big rubber bands, that sounds like a weird joke as well, uh, makes a lot of noise, a lot of momentum. There. All right. So for ease of convenience, I kind of feel like, at least for indoor shooting, just one loop of the round things, they don't get tangled up as much. Whereas this thing, after a while, they just start to overlap and like ravel themselves up. Although of course it's not doing it now that so there's a lot more fidgeting trying to get these bands straight all the time. Although you just run your finger down one end and that'll tend to unravel it. Let me ravel it up purposely. Very often after shooting it might be like that, right? So you could take a finger, unravel it. But with the, round tube, it doesn't seem to happen as often. And it's also simply moving slower, so it creates less noise, and it's less tiring for your arms because there's not much energy necessary to overcome the stretchiness of these two little bands. All right, so in synopsis, if you're going to shoot indoors, for me, I recommend shooting gangster style with this Pocket Predator Taurus with the band orientation and the vertical position. You can put flat bands on this. If I was to actually go outdoors, I would buy this Hathcock thing. This thing definitely is capable. You could run small bands on this as well, but it's definitely a much bulkier system. But either of them seem relatively indestructible. I just have no way of thinking these could actually get damaged in any way other than putting them into a fire. All right, so hopefully you guys, if you're, looking for a new hobby and you don't want to spend too much money, you can buy some of those cheap AliExpress things. A few rubber bands, 5 rubber bands will probably last you a month. It takes several hundred rounds to break a rubber band. And then if you want to delve further into the hobby, you can start tying off your own rubber bands. Maybe trying some of that meltable plastic to make your own handles, that kind of stuff. Anyways, it was fun for me. That's it for the slingshots, though. And then we're going to do a review later about that Specna Arms machine gun, airsoft machine gun. All right, see you guys. Thanks for watching.